"If you can translate this, you can have my salary," mocked the millionaire. But the cleaning lady taught him a lesson. Emily Johnson paused her mopping when a shrill laugh echoed through the office. The businessman Richard Thompson was holding a document and mocking her in front of all the executives present. That was the moment everything changed. Richard had just issued a challenge he never imagined would be accepted, let alone mark the beginning of his own downfall. "If you can translate this, you can have my month's salary," Richard shouted, waving the paper in her direction. The other executives chuckled quietly, but Emily set aside the mop and stepped forward. Her hands, still damp from work, carefully took the document. It was a contract in Mandarin filled with technical terms that would make any professional translator break a sweat. Silence fell over the room as she opened her mouth and began reading fluently. Every word came out perfectly, every technical term translated with impressive precision. The executive's eyes widened. "Stop this nonsense!" Richard snatched the paper from her hands, his face red with anger. "It was just a joke. No need to pretend you understand." "I wasn't pretending, Mr. Thompson," Emily replied calmly, wiping her hands on her apron. "The contract is about importing medical equipment. There are some translation errors that could cause legal issues." Richard glared at her with hatred. He had just been humiliated by a cleaning lady in front of his team. This couldn't stand. The next day, Emily was assigned a new task: cleaning the building's restrooms. The punishment was clear. What Richard didn't know was that this decision would cost him far more than he imagined. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, back to the story. While cleaning the executive restroom, Emily found confidential documents thrown in the trash. It wasn't unusual for executives to carelessly discard important papers, but these documents caught her attention. They were international contracts, all with terrible translations that would surely cause problems. Barbara Wilson, Richard's secretary of 15 years, had always treated Emily kindly. That afternoon she approached while the cleaning lady sorted through the discarded papers. "Emily, can I talk to you for a minute?" Barbara glanced around cautiously. "Of course, Miss Barbara. What is it?" "I heard what happened yesterday. Is it true you speak Mandarin?" Emily hesitated. Telling the truth might bring more trouble, but Barbara had always been kind to her. "Yes, I do, and other languages too." Barbara took a deep breath. "I knew there was something different about you. The company is losing huge contracts because of bad translations. Mr. Thompson fired all the translators to cut costs and is just using phone apps now." "What do you mean?" "Just yesterday we lost a $2 million deal with a German company because the app translated premium quality as pregnant quality. The Germans thought we were mocking them." Emily shook her head. She knew this would happen sooner or later. "Why are you telling me this, Miss Barbara?" "Because maybe you can help. Unofficially, of course. But if you find important documents in the trash, maybe you could take a look." That night, Emily took the papers home. She lived in a small apartment in Flushing with her 16-year-old daughter, Hannah, who attended night school to help with expenses. "Mom, why did you bring work home?" Hannah asked, watching her mother hunched over the documents at the kitchen table. "It's complicated, sweetheart. I found some papers at work with wrong translations. If they aren't fixed, the company could lose a lot of money. And why do you even care? That man humiliated you yesterday." Emily looked at her daughter. Hannah was right, but she couldn't simply ignore mistakes that could hurt hundreds of employees. "It's not about him, hon. It's about the other workers. If the company goes under, a lot of good people will lose their jobs." Hannah sat beside her mother. "You've always been like this, always putting others first. Since when do you know so many languages?" "It's a long story, sweetheart. I've got time." Emily took a deep breath. She'd never told Hannah the whole truth about her past. "Before you were born, I worked as a freelance translator. Did jobs for international companies, made good money. But when your father, when he left us, I was pregnant and needed a steady job with benefits." "But why didn't you go back to translating after I was born?" "I tried, honey. But the market changed, got tougher, and I needed fixed hours to take care of you. Cleaning was what I could get at the time, and I just stayed." Hannah held her mother's hand. "You sacrificed your career for me." It wasn't a sacrifice. It was a choice. And I don't regret a single second. The next day, Emily started leaving small notes on Richard's desk. Discreet corrections, precise translations of key contract sections. She didn't sign them, just left the right information. Richard arrived at the office and found the first note. It read, "The contract with the Japanese company has an error in the third clause. They're not offering colorful carps as collateral, but corporate bonds. Please correct before signing." "Barbara," Richard shouted. "Who left this here?" "I don't know, Mr. Thompson. It was here when I arrived." Richard crumpled the paper, then reconsidered and smoothed it out. He checked the Japanese contract and found the translation was indeed wrong. Signing like that would have caused an international embarrassment. The notes kept appearing, always accurate, always saving Richard from awkward mistakes. But instead of gratitude, he felt anger growing inside him. Someone was making him look incompetent. A week later, Richard set a trap. He installed a hidden camera pointing at his desk and waited. The next morning, he saw Emily approaching his desk with a paper in hand. "Caught you!" he yelled, stepping out from behind the door. Emily jumped, dropping the paper. "What's the meaning of this?" Richard held up the note. "The American proposal needs rewriting. You offered lab rats instead of contract drafts. The Americans will cancel everything." "I was just trying to help," Emily answered, her voice shaking. "Help? You're trying to make a fool of me. A cleaner could never understand international business." The argument drew all the employees who gathered around. "You know what we're going to do?" Richard was red with anger. "I'll prove you're a fraud. I've got a video call with Japanese investors in 1 hour. If you're so good, you'll translate live in front of everyone." Emily felt her heart race. "Mr. Thompson, I don't think this is a good idea." "Scared? Of course you are. Because you're a liar." "I'm not a liar." Emily straightened her shoulders. "I accept the challenge." An hour later, the office was packed. All the employees wanted to see the cleaner who claimed to speak Japanese face the company's most important investors. Richard connected his computer to the meeting room screen. The Japanese executives appeared. Richard introduced himself in basic English, but it quickly became clear they preferred speaking their native language. Richard began sweating. "Emily, it's your turn," he said with a nasty smile. Emily Johnson stepped up to the microphone and greeted the Japanese investors in their language. The reaction was immediate, genuine smiles and a smooth conversation. Not only did she translate flawlessly, but she also explained cultural nuances that Richard Thompson had never understood. Then something happened that would change everything. One of the Japanese investors mentioned a figure Richard had misinterpreted in the preparatory documents. The amount wasn't $1 million, it was $10 million. Emily hesitated for a second. She could mistranslate and let Richard embarrass himself, or she could correct him and save a $10 million deal. She chose to do the right thing. "They're confirming an investment of $10 million, not $1 million, as stated in the documents we received," Emily translated for Richard. "They want to know if our company has the infrastructure to handle a project of this magnitude." Richard's eyes widened. 10 million. That was 10 times what he'd expected. He quickly composed himself and assured them they were prepared. The meeting ended in total success. The Japanese were impressed by the quality of the translation and asked who was responsible for such excellent communication. Seeing his chance, Richard shamelessly lied. "This is our new Director of International Relations, Emily Johnson, one of the best professionals in the field." When the call ended, the office erupted in applause. Emily had saved the biggest contract in the company's history, but instead of gratitude, Richard approached her angrily. "You don't tell anyone what happened here, understood? As far as anyone's concerned, I handled this meeting alone." "But Mr. Thompson, no buts. You're still the janitor, and if you open your mouth, you're fired." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. From that day on, Emily's life took a cruel turn. Richard began locking her in a small room during every important international meeting. She was forced to translate in secret through a headset, while he took all the credit outside. "Translate what they're saying," Richard would order through the hidden microphone, "and don't you dare get a single word wrong." Emily felt like a prisoner. She spent hours in that cramped room translating complex conversations while Richard dazzled the clients. He even stationed a guard at the door to ensure she couldn't leave. Things got worse when Richard started forcing her to work overtime. Hannah complained that her mother was coming home later and later. "Mom, what's going on at work? You're different," Hannah said one night when Emily came home nearly collapsing from exhaustion. "It's just a rough patch, sweetheart. It'll pass. You're being taken advantage of, aren't you? That man is using you." Emily couldn't deny it. Tears streamed down her face. "He found out I can translate, and now he's forcing me to do his job. But if I tell anyone, I'll be fired. And you know we need this job." Hannah hugged her mother. "We'll figure something out, Mom. You can't go on like this." Meanwhile, Jessica Thompson, Richard's daughter, began noticing something odd. Working in her father's HR department, she realized Emily always disappeared during important meetings. Jessica, 28, had always questioned her father's methods. Unlike him, she believed every employee deserved respect, no matter their position. One afternoon, she decided to investigate. She discreetly followed Emily and watched as the guard escorted her to the isolated room. Jessica hid and managed to overhear part of the translation Emily was doing for the meeting with German investors. She was shocked. Her suspicion was confirmed. Her father was using an employee as a secret translator and taking all the credit. That night, Jessica confronted Richard at home. "Dad, we need to talk about Emily Johnson." "What about her?" Richard pretended not to care. "I know what you're doing. I know she translates for you in secret." Richard turned red. "You don't know anything, and you'd better keep your mouth shut if you don't want me to cut your inheritance." "How can you do this? She's an employee, not your personal slave." "She's a cleaner. She should be grateful for the opportunity." "Opportunity? Dad, this is exploitation." Richard stood up and pointed his finger at his daughter. "You stay out of my business. If you tell anyone anything, you can kiss the apartment I pay for and the car in the garage goodbye." Jessica left her father's house that same night. She couldn't stand living under the same roof as someone capable of such cruelty any longer. The next day, she sought out Emily during lunch. "Can I talk to you in private?" Jessica asked, approaching the table where Emily was eating a simple sandwich. "Of course, Miss Jessica. Is something wrong?" "I know what my father is doing to you." Emily choked on her sandwich. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Emily, please, I know he forces you to translate in secret. I know you're the real reason behind the international contracts." Emily looked around, afraid someone might hear. "If he finds out you know, he'll fire me," she whispered. "That's exactly why I'm here. I want to help you. I have a recorder. If we can get proof of what he's doing, we can expose him. I can't risk my job. I have a daughter to support. And do you think you can keep living like this? He's exploiting you, Emily. This isn't work, it's modern slavery." Emily knew Jessica was right, but her fear of unemployment outweighed her anger. "Give me a few days to think," Emily pleaded. "Of course, but know that when you're ready, I'll be here to help." That week, Emily's situation got even worse. Richard found out the company had lost an important contract with a French multinational because the translation app misinterpreted the agreement's terms. "This is your fault," Richard yelled, locking Emily in the office. "You should have warned me about this contract." "Mr. Thompson, I only find out about contracts when you call me to translate. I don't have access to the documents beforehand." "Then you'd better start getting access. From now on, you'll review all international documents before I sign them. And you'll do it on your own time, outside work hours. But I already work 10 hours a day. Now you'll work 12, and no overtime. Or would you rather look for another job?" Emily went home that night completely drained. Hannah found her crying in the kitchen. "Enough, Mom. This can't go on." Hannah was furious. "What do you want me to do? If I quit this job, how will we pay rent?" "We'll figure it out. You have an amazing talent. You could work as a freelance translator." "Han, you don't understand. I've been out of the translation market for 15 years. No one will hire me without recent references." "Then we'll create references. You'll document everything you're doing for that horrible man. You'll gather proof and then expose him." Emily looked at her daughter. At 16, Hannah already showed a courage she herself had lost over the years. "It's too risky, sweetheart." "Mom, look at you. You're wasting away. If this keeps up, you'll end up sick. And then, what will I do without you?" Hannah's words struck deep in Emily Johnson's heart. She was right. If she continued in that situation, she would end up having a nervous breakdown. The next day, Emily sought out Jessica. "I accept your help," she said firmly, "but we have to be very careful." Jessica smiled. "Leave it to me. I have a plan." Over the next 2 weeks, Jessica managed to record several translation sessions. The small recorder was hidden in the room where Emily was locked in, capturing conversations where Richard Thompson clearly took credit for her work. But it was during a meeting with Russian investors that Emily discovered something that would change everything. The Russians weren't just talking business. They were discussing a scheme to embezzle money from American pension funds. Richard didn't understand a word they were saying, but he agreed to everything, thinking it was a legitimate investment. Emily was horrified. If that scheme went through, thousands of retirees would lose their savings. She had to do something. During the translation, she decided to subtly sabotage the conversation. Instead of translating the corrupt proposals, she told Richard the Russians were talking about agricultural imports. The meeting ended without the scheme being approved. But her sabotage didn't go unnoticed for long. One of the Russians who spoke English realized the translation was wrong. At the end of the meeting, he mentioned to Richard that there were issues with the translation. Richard was furious. That night, he confronted Emily alone in the office after all the employees had left. "You sabotaged me in today's meeting," he said, stepping closer threateningly. "I didn't sabotage anything. I translated exactly what they said." "Liar! Sokolov told me the translation was wrong. You did it on purpose." "Mr. Thompson, maybe they said something you didn't understand." "Enough lies!" Richard slammed his fist on the desk. "I recorded everything. I have all the translation sessions saved. If you try to ruin me, I'll show everyone how you invaded my privacy and spied on me." Emily felt her blood run cold. If Richard had recordings of her, he could use them against her. "But you know what?" Richard continued with a cruel smile. "No one will believe a janitor over me. You can have all the proof you want. Who do you think people will trust? Me, a respected businessman, or you, a cleaning lady?" Emily left the office that night feeling defeated. Richard was right. Who would believe her over him? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The next day, something unexpected happened. Diane Thompson, Richard's wife of 25 years, showed up at the company looking specifically for Emily. "Are you Emily Johnson?" the elegant woman, around 60 years old, asked. "Yes, ma'am. Can I help you with something?" "I need to talk to you. It's about my husband." Diane took Emily to a cafe near the company. Her hands trembled as she held an envelope. "I received this in the mail yesterday," Diane said, showing the envelope. "There's no sender, but it has photos of my husband in meetings I didn't know about." Emily opened the envelope and saw pictures of Richard with people she recognized as international clients. There was also a flash drive with audio files. "Mrs. Thompson, I don't know who sent this to you. I know you handle translations for him. People at the company talk. I need you to help me understand what's being said in these recordings." Diane inserted the flash drive into her tablet and began playing the files. Emily recognized it immediately. They were recordings of the meetings with the Russians, but there were also conversations she had never heard before. As she translated, Emily uncovered a corruption network much larger than she had imagined. Richard wasn't just involved in the pension fund scheme, he was also planning to leave the United States with a huge amount of embezzled money and a Russian mistress named Natasha. He's planning to flee the country, Emily translated, watching the desperation grow in Diane's eyes. "And from what I can understand, he's going to leave you with nothing. The assets are being transferred to overseas accounts." Diane began to cry. 25 years of marriage destroyed in such a cruel way. "I suspected he had a mistress, but I never imagined. How could he do this to me? To our daughter?" Emily held the woman's hands. Mrs. Diane, you can't confront him yet. If he finds out you know, he might speed up his escape plan. Then what do I do? Just stand by and watch him steal everything we built together? Let's think this through. But first, do you have any idea who could have sent this envelope? Diane shook her head. No clue, but whoever it was, they're trying to protect me. In reality, it was Jessica who had sent the envelope. She had gained access to her father's files and uncovered the entire scheme. She couldn't confront him directly without concrete proof, so she decided to involve her mother in the fight. That afternoon, Jessica showed up at the cafe where Diane and Emily were still talking. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Jessica asked, feigning surprise. "Jessica." Diane stood up to hug her daughter. "What a coincidence running into you here." "It's not a coincidence, Mom. I was the one who sent the envelope." Diane's eyes widened. "You? I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but I needed proof. And Emily can confirm everything in the recordings." The three women sat together. For the first time, Emily felt like part of a team, no longer alone against Richard. "Jessica, how did you get these recordings?" Emily asked. "My dad is careless with technology. He leaves his computer open, doesn't change passwords, and it was easy to access the files." "And what do you plan to do?" Diane asked. "First, we're going to protect you," Emily replied. "Then, we'll expose everything he's doing." "But how? He said himself no one would believe a cleaning lady over him." Jessica smiled. "That's where he's wrong. He doesn't know I have access to all the company documents, and he doesn't know my mom is a minority partner in the business." "What do you mean?" Emily asked. Diane explained. "When Richard started the company, I invested my family inheritance. Technically, I own 20% of everything, but he always told me I didn't understand business, and it was better to leave it to him." "This changes everything," Emily exclaimed. "You have legal rights to the company. You can demand access to documents, challenge his decisions." "But I don't understand anything about business," Diane protested. "I do," Emily said, "and I can help you understand too." Jessica clapped her hands. "That's it. The three of us together can take my father down." "But what's the plan?" Diane asked. Emily thought for a moment. "Your husband is presenting the Russian project to the board next week. He doesn't know I sabotaged the meeting, so he still thinks the project will be approved. We'll use that opportunity to expose everything." "How?" "You'll use your rights as a partner to attend the meeting. You'll bring the recordings and all the documents proving the corruption, and I'll be there to translate everything in front of the board." Diane grew nervous. "But what if it goes wrong? What if he intimidates us?" "Mum, we can't let him keep doing this," said Jessica. "How many people has he hurt already? How many more will he hurt if we don't do something?" Emily agreed. "This is our chance to do what's right. It's not just about me or you, Diane. It's about all the people he's exploited and will keep exploiting." Over the next week, the three women prepared meticulously. Diane hired a lawyer to confirm her rights as a partner. Jessica gathered all the incriminating documents about her father, and Emily prepared detailed translations of all the corrupt conversations. The night before the board meeting, Emily barely slept. She was nervous, but she also felt an energy she hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long while, she was fighting for something she believed in. Hannah noticed the change in her mother. "You seem different, Mom, more alive." "It's because I'm finally doing something important, sweetheart. Something that'll make a difference. I'm proud of you. I always have been. But even more now." On the day of the meeting, Richard arrived early at the office. He was confident, expecting another day of glory as he presented the Russian project to the board. He had no idea his life was about to change forever. The board consisted of 6 members, 3 Americans and 3 foreigners joining via video call. Richard always ran the meetings as if he were the sole owner of the company, ignoring the fact there were other partners. "Good morning, gentlemen," Richard began. "Today I'm pleased to present a project that will revolutionize our company, a partnership with Russian investors that will triple our profits." That's when Diane walked into the room. "Diane, what are you doing here?" Richard tried to mask his surprise. "Exercising my rights as a partner," she replied, holding up the legal documents. "I have the right to attend all board meetings." Richard turned red. "We talked about this at home. You don't understand business." "Maybe it's time I learned." The board members exchanged glances. Most didn't even know Diane was a partner in the company. "Mrs. Thompson," said the eldest board member, "of course you may participate. Please, have a seat." Richard tried to continue his presentation, but he was visibly rattled by his wife's presence. "As I was saying, the Russian project—" "Before we discuss any Russian project," Diane interrupted, "I'd like to present some information to the board." She opened her folder and pulled out the recordings and documents. "I've discovered my husband is involved in activities that could seriously jeopardize our company." "Diane, you don't know what you're talking about," Richard tried to intimidate her. "I know exactly what I'm saying. And to prove it, I've brought someone who can translate exactly what's been discussed in these international deals." At that moment, Emily entered the room. Richard turned pale. "What is this woman doing here? She's a janitor." "She's much more than that," Diane replied, "and you know it very well." One of the foreign board members joining via video call recognized Emily immediately. "Wait a minute," he said in English. "Isn't this the translator from our last meeting? The one who speaks perfect Japanese?" Richard tried to respond, but Emily stepped forward. "Yes, sir, that's me. And I'd like to clarify a few things about the meetings I've attended." "Stop this right now," Richard shouted. "You're fired." "Actually," Diane said, "she's not. As a partner, I've hired her as a translation consultant, and now she's going to explain exactly what's been discussed in these international meetings." Emily walked to the center of the room. Her heart was pounding, but she knew this was the moment of truth. "Members of the board, over the past few months, I've been forced to translate conversations that reveal an international corruption scheme involving Mr. Richard Thompson." "That's a lie!" shouted Richard. "I can prove it." Emily turned on the first recording. "This is from a meeting with Russian investors discussing the embezzlement of pension funds from the United States." As Emily translated each conversation, the board members' faces grew increasingly shocked. The scheme was even bigger than they had imagined. "And there's more," Emily continued. "Mr. Thompson is also planning to transfer company assets to offshore accounts and leave the country with a substantial amount of money." "She's lying," Richard was desperate. "She's a disgruntled employee trying to ruin me." Just then, Jessica walked into the room with a folder full of documents. "Dad, it's over." "Jessica, what are you doing?" "What are you?" "I brought all the evidence of your crimes. Bank transfers, emails with Natasha, plane tickets already purchased, everything." The eldest board member stood up. "Mr. Thompson, given the evidence presented, we have no choice but to vote for your immediate removal as company president." "You can't do this," Richard yelled. "I built this company." "With my family's money," Diane replied calmly, "and the work of people like Emily, whom you exploited and humiliated." The vote was unanimous. Richard Thompson was out of the company he had tyrannically ruled for so many years. But the surprises weren't over. "Before we adjourn," Diane said, "I'd like to propose something to the board. Our company clearly needs someone competent to handle international relations, someone who truly understands translations and global business." Everyone looked at Emily. "I don't know if I'm qualified," she began. "You're more qualified than many who've worked here for years," replied the foreign board member. "Your translations are impeccable, and your integrity was proven today. I propose," Diane said, "that Emily Johnson be appointed our new Director of International Relations." The motion passed unanimously. Emily couldn't believe it. In just a few hours, she had gone from being a janitor to a director at one of New York City's largest companies. "I accept," she said, tears in her eyes, "but I have one condition." "What is it?" asked Diane. "I want to create a training program for all company employees, people like me who have hidden talents but never had the chance to show them." "Approved," said the eldest board member. "This company needs change, and from what I see, you're exactly what we needed." Richard tried one last move. "You'll regret this. I know important people. I'll destroy this company." "Dad," Jessica said sadly. You've already destroyed everything that mattered. Your family, your reputation, your values. There's nothing left to destroy. As Richard was escorted out of the building, Emily looked out the window of the office that was now hers. She saw the man who had humiliated her so many times walking defeated down the sidewalk. That night, Emily came home with news that would change her and Hannah's lives forever. "Mom, why are you home so late again?" asked Hannah, worried. "Because I had a very special day, sweetheart. A day I'll never forget." Emily told her everything that had happened. Hannah could hardly believe it. "You mean my mom is a director now? Your mom now has the chance to show what she's capable of, and more importantly, she can help others get the same opportunities." In the following months, the company's transformation was remarkable. The training program Emily created uncovered incredible talents among the employees. The doorman spoke fluent Arabic and French. The woman in the cafeteria had a degree in accounting. The security guard had a degree in engineering. "How is it possible that talents like these stayed hidden for so long?" Diane asked in a meeting. "Because no one ever asked," replied Emily. "People were only seen for the job they did, not the potential they had." The company began to grow sustainably and ethically. The new international contracts were based on honesty and real competence, not corrupt schemes. 6 months later, Emily received an unexpected call. "Hello, is this Emily Johnson?" "Yes, who's speaking?" "This is Dr. Davis from Mercy Hospital. We have a patient here who's asking to speak with you." "What patient?" "Richard Thompson. He's been here for a week." Emily fell silent for a moment. "He specifically asked for me?" "Yes. He says he has something important to tell you." Emily hesitated, but decided to go to the hospital. She found Richard in a public hospital bed, a far cry from the arrogant man she had known. "Emily, thank you for coming." "What do you want, Richard?" "First, to apologize. For what I did to you, for how I treated you, there's no excuse. And second, I want to tell you something about your past, something you don't know." Emily sat beside the bed. "What do you mean?" "Do you remember working at an embassy in Brussels about 20 years ago?" "I do. I was an official translator there for 2 years. I was an intern at that embassy. You helped me land my first international job. If it weren't for you, I never would have built my career." Emily's eyes widened. Now she understood why Richard's face had seemed familiar when they first met. "You were the shy guy who couldn't speak English well?" "That's right. You spent hours teaching me, helping me, believing in me when no one else did." "And how could you treat me like that knowing all this?" Richard began to cry. "Because when I saw you at that company, as a janitor, I remembered how I could have ended up if not for your help. And it scared me, made me feel guilty for all the success I had. So I decided to humiliate you so I wouldn't have to face that guilt." "That's terrible, Richard. I know, that's why I'm here. I've lost everything, the company, my family, my health, and I deserve it all. But before it's too late, I wanted you to know the truth." Emily held his hand. "You won't recover. The doctors don't know, but that's not what matters. What matters is, you deserve to know you've always been a special person, even when I tried to make you believe otherwise." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you offered me a chance to join the training program you created, and I refused out of pride. Now I see you were trying to help me, even after everything I did." Emily left the hospital with mixed feelings. On one hand, she was happy to finally understand the strange connection she'd always felt with Richard. On the other, she was sad to see how pride and greed could destroy a person. 3 months later, Richard recovered and left the hospital. To everyone's surprise, he showed up at the company looking for Emily. "I came to accept your offer," he said humbly. "What offer?" "The training program, if there's still a spot." Emily smiled. There's always a spot for those who truly want a fresh start. Richard began working as an administrative assistant, the lowest position in the company. Little by little, he proved he had changed. He helped colleagues, treated everyone with respect, and worked with sincere dedication. A year later, during the company's anniversary celebration, Emily gave an emotional speech. "When I first came here as a janitor, I thought my story was over, that my dreams had been left in the past. But I learned that it's never too late to start over, never too late to show what we're capable of. The audience applauded enthusiastically. This company transformed because we discovered that every person has value. It doesn't matter if you're a janitor, a doorman, a secretary, or a director. What matters is what you can contribute to make our world better. Diane stepped up to the microphone. I'd like to announce that by unanimous decision of the board, Emily Johnson has been promoted to vice president of the company. And more. We're expanding the training program to other companies in New York City. The celebration ended with everyone moved. It was the beginning of a new era, not just for the company, but for everyone who believed that a second chance is always possible. That night at home, Emily and Hannah talked about their plans for the future. Mom, are you going to expand the program to other cities? That's the plan, sweetheart. I want people like me, who had to hide their talents to survive, to have real opportunities. I'm thinking of studying psychology to help with the program, said Hannah. That would be wonderful, dear. We can work together, helping people. 2 years later, the training program created by Emily was already in place at 50 companies in New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Thousands of employees had discovered talents they didn't even know they had. Emily's story became an inspiration for many. She wrote a book sharing her experience, which became a bestseller and was translated into several languages. On a sunny morning, Emily was in her office when she received a special visit. A delegation of Japanese business people who had heard about the training program and wanted to implement it in Japan. During the meeting, the leader of the delegation asked a question that deeply moved her. Ms. Johnson, what was the moment you realized you could change your life? Emily thought for a moment and smiled. It was when I stopped being afraid to show who I really was. When I understood that my worth didn't depend on others' opinions, but on the certainty I had about myself. And what would you say to someone going through the same situation you faced? I'd say it's never too late to start over, that the obstacles we face don't define our future, and that sometimes the people who humiliate us the most are the ones most afraid of our potential. The meeting ended with the signing of an agreement to bring the training program to Japan. It was the fulfillment of a dream Emily didn't even know she had. That afternoon, she decided to visit Hannah's old school, where she had been invited to give a talk on personal resilience. Students, Emily began, you're at an age where you think you know everything about your future, but life will surprise you in ways you can't imagine. A student raised her hand. Miss Johnson, do you ever regret being humiliated? Never, because it was through humiliation that I discovered my true strength. Sometimes we need to be broken to realize we're stronger than we thought. But how did you manage to forgive the person who hurt you? Forgiveness isn't about the other person, it's about you. When you forgive, you free yourself from the weight of resentment. And when you free yourself, you can soar higher than ever. After the talk, a teacher approached Emily. Ms. Johnson, we have a cleaning lady here at the school who speaks 5 languages. She cleans the classrooms, but I always see her helping foreign students with translations. Do you think... Bring her to talk with me, Emily interrupted, smiling. There's always room for one more person in the program. The following week, Emily received a phone call that moved her even more. It was from a woman in Miami. Mrs. Emily, my name is Letitia. I've worked as a housekeeper for 15 years, but I have a nursing degree. I saw your story on TV and wanted to know if it's possible to bring the program here. Of course it's possible, Letitia. Let's talk about it. You don't know what this means to me. I thought my professional life was over when I couldn't get a job in healthcare. Letitia, your professional life is just beginning. 3 years after the incident with Richard, Emily was in Washington, D.C., attending a public hearing on professional recognition. She had been invited to speak about the importance of training programs in companies. During her testimony, a lawmaker asked a question that made her reflect deeply. Mrs. Emily, what do you attribute the success of your program to? The belief that every human being has value. It doesn't matter what job they do, what clothes they wear, or how many diplomas they have on the wall. What matters is recognizing and developing the potential in every person. Do you believe this can be applied on a national scale? Not only do I believe it, I know it's necessary. How many talents are being wasted across the United States because people don't have the opportunity to show what they're capable of? After the hearing, Emily was invited to lead a national professional training program. It was a huge responsibility, but she knew she was ready. The night before assuming her new role, Emily was at home organizing her thoughts when Hannah, now a psychology graduate working in the program, sat beside her. "Mom, do you remember that day when Mr. Richard challenged you to translate the document? How could I forget? Do you think he knew he was changing your life in that moment?" Emily smiled. "I'm sure he didn't. He thought he was humiliating me. He didn't know he was setting me free." "What do you mean?" "Sweetheart, for 15 years I hid who I really was. I was afraid to show my talents because I thought people wouldn't accept me. When Richard challenged me publicly, I couldn't hide anymore. It was terrifying, but it was also liberating. And now? Now I know my mission is to help others break free too, to not be afraid to shine." On the first day of the national program, Emily woke up early and looked in the mirror. She saw the same woman who, 15 years earlier, had taken a janitorial job out of necessity. But now she also saw the capable professional, the inspiring leader, the person with the courage to fight for others. Arriving at the office in Washington, D.C., she found a message that moved her deeply. It was from Richard. "Emily, I saw on TV that you're leading the national program. I can't express how proud I am. You deserve this and so much more. Thank you for teaching me it's never too late to be a better person. With admiration and gratitude, Richard." Emily saved the message and prepared for her first day. She had a meeting with representatives from all over the country, people who came to share stories like hers. During the meeting, she met Kevin, a doorman from Portland who spoke 6 indigenous languages and could help with cultural preservation projects. She also met Mary, a janitor from New Orleans who had developed an innovative, eco-friendly cleaning method. "Each of you," Emily said, "has something unique to offer. Our job is to build bridges between your talents and the right opportunities." By the end of the first month, the program had already identified over 1,000 professionals with underutilized skills nationwide. Translators working as janitors, engineers working as doormen, teachers working as housekeepers. "This is just the beginning," Emily said in a press conference. "Let's transform the concept of professional recognition in the United States." End of story. And what did you think of Emily Johnson's journey? Can you imagine how many people like her are around us, hiding incredible talents behind simple uniforms? Tell us in the comments if you've ever been in a similar situation or know someone who deserved an opportunity like this. Your opinion means a lot to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that show how life can surprise us in extraordinary ways.